has the problem of death. If we're going to argue logically, the argument got to hold up on both sides. All the killing in our community ain't coming from white people. Come on, say amen if you can. We are killing one another. Our old people are scared to get out at night in their own community. They're not scared of white people. They're scared of young black boys on the street. Amen. No. All the killing that's going on ain't going on in River Oaks. It's going on in South Union, in Third Ward, on Cullen and Martin Luther King. Every street that's named after Martin Luther King across America is riddled with crime and death in the name of a man who stood for nonviolence. The church has got to accept some responsibility, because we in here singing and shouting on Sunday morning. Let's get out here and go tell that young black boy and that young black girl, we gonna teach you how to love yourself more than somebody taught you how to hate yourself. Pull your pants up. Take your nasty pajamas off when you get up in the morning to go outside. Wish I had somebody to help me. Act like you got good sense. Talk like somebody's raising you. A whole lot of our problems are self-inflicted. White people ain't breaking in my house. I wish I had a witness.
And over the past few weeks, we've grieved together as the Black community has endured more senseless acts of racial terror and violence. At YouTube, we believe Black lives matter, and we all need to do more to dismantle systemic racism. We're committed to doing better as a platform to center and amplify Black voices and perspectives. And we're working to ensure Black users, artists, and creators can share their stories and be protected from hateful, white supremacist, and bullying content. We know there is much more work.
Good afternoon. This is Rudolf from Germany. I am addressing today specifically Afro-American people. I might be probably the first white man, Aryan German man, who is admitting something to you. I took a long time to think about this video which I'm showing you, a very short one, about the white race. Many of you dark-skinned people, in America mainly, have had a suspicion for a very long time. White people are not really human. And this suspicion has been around for a long time. And like any suspicion which is around for a long time, there is a little bit of truth to it. I want to admit today to you that white people originating from Northern Europe are called not aliens, they are called Aryans. Sorry about that, my brain don't function so well today. These white people are not really human from this earth like black people are, Indian people are, Asian people are. Yes, they are all humans. We white people are actually a minority, and we are, let's face the truth, also called the tall whites. Not all of them are Not all of us are tall, not all of us are completely white, but in general, that's what it is. And as some of you may know, the tall whites are not really earthly human, but we're coming out of space, out of another galaxy. We are not human as the rest of the human race. We came here from another star, we white people, in order to control the world. We white people all have a secret code, a secret language under each other. We know, no matter how nice we pretend to be, we all stick together in order to control the other races, particularly the black race. And I am feeling so bad about it by now that I had to speak out here on this video and admit it. White people are not human. White people, including myself, all stick together, know the truth which they do not want to admit to you. White people are out of space. We come from another galaxy. We all know our home planet, which we don't want to reveal because we don't want to be attacked. And we have no good intention with you. We do not want to share our wealth with you. We do not want to share our knowledge with you. You have been mistreated hundreds of years ago, and this is very, very bad. And your chances in life, to the most of you, many of you have no chance in life. You can sit and wait for work on a corner with your other friends, and work will never arrive to you. It's very, very hard, I know. And we rich people, we white people, we alien people don't want to share what we have with you, so you have a good time. This is my testimony in public. White people are from another planet.
Hello and welcome to the most hated show in the black corner of internet. I am your host, the whiteologist, Mr. Blows Your Minds, and this is Black Minds News Report. Black Minds News is the report. Articulate, transmit, communicate, insinuate, develop, investigate, decode, unveil, spread the news, whether it's by news, video, website, or quotes from publications. As I articulate this information as the creator of the universe, be here heart, soul, mind, and spirit. Because why? The truth don't need no partner. As a descendant of the greatest people who created this land that we call the United States, we, today's children, offspring, and present generation, we give honor to our ancestors. You know what the motto of my show is? I'm never gonna tell you what I heard. I'm only gonna tell you what I know. Today's date is July the 2nd, 2020. Another show. We didn't go live. We wanted to do this as an upload because we are measuring what is going on as to YouTube, and as the PSA say, that they are trying to allow black creators the opportunity to voice their stories. Well, it looks like Black Minds News is one of those that does not ascribe to me. So maybe this will help me to get my cut the check. So anyway, we got stories today. We're going to do some news, some things that have been taken out here. And, you know, Black Minds News is trying to do what they do. It seems like everything is too extra suppressed channel. child, of ways to keep this going. So again, this is the most hated show in the black corner of YouTube. So get ready as we get ready to get into this broadcast. Hey, how's y'all doing, everybody? Again, this is your host, Mr. Blow Your Minds, and welcome to Black MINDZ News Report. First and foremost, I want to say what's good to my fam, my subscribers, my day ones. They are not allowing me to get any new subscribers like I'm getting them. It says I get 2, and then the next day it come back with a -2. It's just like, whoever this is, and I'm pretty sure I know who you are, because we done had them conversations, but I want you to keep doing what you're doing. Help my family to come up, because we gonna come up, right? So anyway, passing by, you having to pass by, this is the most hated show in the black corner of YouTube. Go down the aisle. You may see some things that might make you feel some kind of way. Remember, the motto of my show is the truth. Don't need no partner, right? So, as you're seeing in the intro there, we had a reverend who seemed to be making the remarks that, our problem is really self-inflicted, right? That everything that has happened to black folks, beyond the fact of what everything else that happened to us in history and all the machinations that permeate us unbeknownst and unseen to many, that we take this reverse psychology of self-accountability because we are self-inflicting their own wounds on ourselves. Let me say that again. That you heard in the intro there, a reverend who seemed to believe that the black plight in the United States is self-inflicted. That there may be some strings, but not the soul strings, as he say, and that we pull our own trigger and pull the pin in their own grenade, and that the outcomes that we see is because we lack thereof our own accountability. And that it is white people who are not killing us. It is those in our communities, the black on black crime, that I guess particularly these people here say that they're not scared of white people. They're only scared of their own. Now, everybody have their own interpretation. Some people like thereof to actually acknowledge the entirety of the story. They like to just glean and pick from a certain aspect, because if certain people are regurgitating that, then if they all saying it, it must be true, right? So instead of them absorbing and doing a John Coffey, which is, let me have that boss, right? Let me take your sickness away from your boss. Right? So when you take the sickness away, then you the one eating all the, disease that they're, relinquishing to you. And so it seems like after that, you have to be self-inflicting by looking in the mirror and say that your problem is caused by oneself. Now, from observation, as one who may not have that understanding and knowledge, if you see people from observation, those who are not part of the BLAK family, it may look like black people from afar. Everything that you see, that you hear, that is being reported, that something wrong with BLAK. Now, when a person who is BLAK and then don't, let's say connect the dots to our entire existence, then I have to say, are you a detriment to we? Yes, one can be said that they are of the cloth. Yes, they could be one of the book. Yes, they could be the pastor. But that don't really mean that they are in the position to really lead, or they could be misleading, right? So anytime I hear someone who seems to try to put in the minds of our heads that the condition that we see is due to our own infliction, that you see that you as black people can't go outside, well, yes, there is a problem or has been a problem with rearing. But is that a natural phenomenon? That's what you got to ask yourself. Is the non-rearing by black Americans, BADOS, and the problems that are systemic today based on what we see, can we say that these problems are a natural phenomenon that is just who we are? Now, in history in this country, they will say that black people, BADOS, were the, let's say, the picture of what morals, family, structure, obedience in a particular time in this country. But what ended up happening? What happened? What happened? Something intervened. Something sipped into us, right? And so what we see is that we have an individual who has a platform. Let's say before there were the social media platforms, the only person who had a platform other than being on the street corner was whom, right? So you got to at least go there on a Sunday, and then those other services that other people may attend with the book studies and so forth. But when you came in there, this is what you were getting, right? They had you in there to program you to make everything about oneself and not to be accountable for those who have put us in the condition. And so if you keep doing this to your people in your congregation, as you've seen in the clip there, then everybody is riled up and fired up, and yes, Lord, ain't no white folks doing this, there's black folks doing this, right? And that's how some people think. They would rather put it all on us than to say that it is a contributing factor of our existence here in this United States, right? Now, I would take some blame. I'm not saying that there is no blame on our half. But those that we do have, are there cause and effects that created that? So I would be lying if I don't say this. If I have the conversation with somebody and I don't add that part to it. Because in order for you to cure whatever's ailing one, you can't just give me the Band-Aid on top of, let's say, the cut, the sore. Right? The Band-Aid itself is just not going to be sufficient. In some cases, depending on how bad the bruise, the cut is. Otherwise, you need to put some ointment and medication and so forth on it so that it can get to the root of the cause. And so it seems like it's very safe for people to just say publicly, especially when you see the connections and how for generations, people have come in our midst who are outsiders only for certain occasions. And based on the way that you have been put before us as a spiritual leader, you would think that the spiritual leader would not be feeding his flock a snake. Right? You would not think that the one who's leading you, pastoring you, would not lead and give you a snake. But we have seen over the duration of our history here, and those who have been consistent generationally going before in those churches, and then to see where we are today and the things that we're trying to demand, if we stayed in there, where would we be? Right? So have we been misled? Have we not really dealt with the truth in its entirety? Are we still trying to make ourselves to be the blame about everything that everyone else does to us? Seems that now that we are taking that off us and putting on the others, people who are accountable, seems like people have gotten their ears up and having attention. But if something that we have, let's say, for instance, somebody who's been saying the same type of sermons year after year, decade after decade, centuries after centuries, some progress is better than no progress, right? And that's how some people look at things. But he said something that I wanted to also touch the fact that I hear a lot of time people say. Right? You hear a lot of people who will mention that, everywhere there's a street that is called MLK, that it is crime-ridden, it is nothing but poverty, misery, hoeing, drug selling, right? And it's like, how is it that you say that a man who came to give his life in behalf of trying to further progress and to make the country accountable for the conditions that it has laid upon his people? So, let's see. Let's see, we got that, right? Let's see if we can see that. So, pull that up on me. No, that's not it. That's not it. Pull that up on me, sir. All right, so let's see. All right, so let's say it like this then. So when we look at MLK, right? When you talk about MLK being a street, and no matter where it has been in this country, it seems to have it's a bad place, it's bad energy. It seems to be despair of a man who you say gave his life for the betterment, and saying that that is a natural phenomenon that has no hidden hands creating that dynamic, right? Now, you know that when you talk about the history of Martin Luther King and the street being named after him, that it says that in many cities in the United States, nearly every major metropolis has a Martin Luther King being honored street. Even if you go to Italy and Israel, right, they have streets honoring Martin Luther King Jr., right? Now, when we talk about the origin, or when we don't talk about when the first time the name of Martin Luther King is being erected and being honored as a street, did you know that in 1968, that Dr. Martin Luther King Drive in Chicago is the beginning, is the first street in the United States to be honored in his name? Right? Now, you know, when Dr. King was alive, that he said that the most racist place he's ever been. Now, here was Martin Luther King, who came from the South and was dealing with a lot of the issues in the South. But when he went up into Chicago, he said he never seen racism at that kind of ferocity and just, all out. Right? So, but anyway, remember, he even got bricked in the head there, right? And so that became the original place where his name had been honored, was MLK Drive in Chicago. Now, those of Chicago know about MLK Drive and the things that you heard that pastor say. But in 68, are we going to say that the structures that were already on the street prior before it became named Martin Luther King Drive, right? Did these establishments and these structures, were they already there? Right? And so that's a question you have to ask yourself. Was it predominantly on the areas that this street is going to be named where black people were? And what were the conditions of the people? And especially talking about in 68 is when Dr. King is being assassinated, right? And we understand that Chicago and many other cities went up. So, but you have Martin Luther King Drive on being named, right? So when you start looking at the other names of streets as King is being increased in every year from 1968, after a while it becomes 70% of these streets are in states which were the members of the Confederate States of America. Let me say that again, that after 68 and every year from 68 after that, what they started to do is name these streets. And what they did is they took 70% of the streets that are in the states where the members of the Confederate States of America who were during the Civil War, American Civil War, talking about Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi, North Carolina, Texas, right? And even King's home, 75 streets are named of him as of 2001 from that time, right? So by the time from 68 to 2001, there's 75 streets in his own hometown, right? And then that increased to about 105 as in 2006, right? Now, the question becomes, the streets that they put, they existed before there was a Martin Luther King Drive. Did the demographics of the people of that area, were they who they were, or did the demographics change and then they migrated it in? And then if there was a flight, did they leave degradation for us to live in? And then if they flighted out, did a lot of the businesses leave? Did the tax change so that the schools could not be having the proper, let's say, books and things necessity to have you in a, as if this is 68, in a 20th century world, right? So we have to ask ourselves and be honest about that, right? And then it says as of 2003, it was over 600 American cities that named after the streets of Dr. King. And by 2004, it had grown another 650, right? And they say accordingly that, it had increased to about 730 and only 10 states in the country without a street named after King. Now, what were those 10 streets, right? 10 streets would be Alaska, Hawaii, Maine, Montana, right? Nebraska, New Hampshire, North Dakota, Rhode Island, South Dakota, and Vermont. What do these states have in common that they would not name a street in honor of Dr. King, right? Okay? And so in 2014, it was estimated that there were over 900 streets named after King in 41 states, Washington, D.C., and Puerto Rico, right? Right? And then in 14 cities, they had freeways named after Dr. King. Staten Island had one, New York, Jacksonville, Florida, Norfolk, Virginia. You got Fayetteville in North Carolina, Louisville, Kentucky, Memphis, Tennessee, Akron, Ohio. You got Tulsa, Oklahoma, Fort Worth, Dallas, Texas. You got Colorado Springs, Colorado, San Diego, California. You got Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, right? Camden, New Jersey, and you had Baton Rouge, Louisiana, right? So his name became synonymous in areas that would be what? Areas that people who he represented. But what was King here to do? King came here trying to get equality and and some people would argue as to, but the equality, and he said he was coming to Washington to do what, y'all? Cut the check, right? What check was Martin Luther King talking about cutting? The same check that today that we're talking about on reparations. That's what check he's talking about, right? And so here's the pastor in his church who was preaching to his choir, and those part of the pew in there, that all the places that Martin Luther King Boulevard and Drive and areas that represents his name are places of decadence. downtroddenness, vagrancy, and drug and prostitution. Is there a hidden hand, or was there a hidden hand in having a people who are economically deprived, who are dependent, who are created as what? A consumer nation, who are being deprived in so many things on planet that is sanctioned by the government. Excuse me, y'all. So sanctioned by the government, and that's all our own doing. See, it seems safe to say that is not the truth than to say the fact that the truth is there is a cause and effect. So we have to sometimes ask ourselves the question, why would somebody try to take the onus off of the culprit and try to reflect that light back onto oneself? See, let's just say, for instance, if black folks was to get their P's and Q's, everything in order, and got rid of all the things that you talk about, would we still have the same persisting problems that we still would have even once that get cleared, right? So let's just say you build the scab on the cut that you believe is healing. And you think, okay, I could take the Band-Aid off. But what up happening is because you're getting dirt and sediments in it, there's pus, blood, because it can't get to the cure. So it seemed to be healing, but there's still the cause under there that making that so that it can't heal, right? So in order for you to get to to cure it, don't you have to get down to the root of it? Let's get to the root, and then guess what will happen at the top? It will heal by itself. Let me say that again. If you got a cut, abrasion, and it starts to build a scab on it, you assume that it's healing. But based on the simple fact that, okay, you let air get on it, there's some dirt getting in it, right? And it's building like pus and blood, meaning that it can't heal itself because it can't get down to the core of where the root of why your hand, or what the cause of making this pus and blood come from. But once you can get that down there, up in there, and get it healed, cleaned, use whatever it is kind of ointment you use. Once you can get down up in that part, then guess what happens? The scab shrinks. It may leave a scar, and everything is healed. So you got to get down to the root, is what I'm saying. We need to start looking at the root of the cause. Looking at the surface of the cause is never going to heal anything. This is why this has been persistent as long as it has, is because you don't want to look at the root of the cause, right? So let's go ahead and get into the show, right? So the root of the cause, right? The root, right? So if the root is not the real true problem here, then you got to ask yourself these questions. Then why, based on what happened on May 25th, 2020, and the backlash that we see, that those who wanted to show some camaraderie, to say that they felt that, again, each individual have their own personal experiences and been in situations with people, and so they have their own thought about situations. So why was it that this started to happen if this don't have no relevance in it? So let me show you something here, and we should be right back. Check this out.
Background checks for gun sales in the U.S. The agency announced that 3.9 million background checks were issued just in May alone. That's the highest one-month total since the FBI began keeping those statistics in 1998. Illinois, Kentucky, Texas, Florida, and California were the states recording the highest number of background checks. The pandemic and unrest caused by the death of George Floyd being cited as the reason. This morning, the FBI kept busy when it comes to the number of background checks for gun sales in the U.S. The agency announced that 3.9 million background checks were issued just in May alone. That's the highest one-month total since the FBI began keeping those statistics in 1998. Illinois, Kentucky, Texas, Florida, and California were the states recording the highest number of background checks. The pandemic and unrest caused by the death of George Floyd being cited. This morning, the FBI
All right, so we are back, right? So, a report just came out that this last month, gun sales have skyrocketed to 3.9 million, right? Now, why would gun sales rise to 3.9 million if someone feels like, well, what, as you heard in that that story right there, that since the George Floyd situation that happened on May 25th of 2020, that the gun sales went up. Why would you think that those gun sales went up? To have anything to think that the people who they seen out on the street and protesting, that these people who, again, we don't want to have no accountability towards them, and that the people that you've seen out there protesting believed, as what we was hearing, as that the accountability falls on us because we are our own worst enemy? Or did these people feel like that maybe the jig is up? Let me say that again. Maybe someone felt like maybe the jig is up and that somebody was coming after them, even though that is not true. But that's the feeling that they had in their mind. And I'm not going to say that all the 3.9 million guns that were sold are solely by white folks, right? But there was something that made guns go up, because if you go back to when 2008, when Barack Obama got into the White House, there was also another record selling of ammunition and guns being sold. Why was that? Because it used to be a saying, if a black man ever get into the White House, it was going to be the end of this country, right? Then when he got reelected again, guess what happened? He went up again, right? So right now, due to the simple fact of what has all the attention that has been focused on after George Floyd's death, and the long persistentness of this has gotten a lot of people uneased and feel like that, is there any remedy to this? And so you have to ask yourself again a question. You're buying guns because why? You feel like you need to protect yourself, right? But how does a people who always been in a privileged position all of a sudden now feel like that something about their, let's say, assets and property are going to be taken? And where's that systemic to and about? Does it say that all of them? No. They're just saying that the people who they see that are coming, no, they don't have anything. They never had anything. They've been deprived of every damn thing, right? And so these people feel like that, well, if I don't got nothing, no, it's only common sense that the place I'm going to be looking will be somewhere with somebody who got something. So the first thing they believe is to go ahead and arm themselves, prepare for that, right? But, you know, if we was to take the advice that somebody was saying, they were saying that, you know what, that we don't need to be looking at white folks. We need to be looking at ourselves. And I think we done looked at ourselves so much that that's why there's so much black on black hate that has happened. But there's been a remedy trying to bring that black love back. And we've been working out. There's still some sickness. I mean, we've been going through this for hundreds of years. You can't be cured overnight. But the fact is that the stance that people are out here taking as to saying that there needs some reforms in policing, there need to be some government policy changes, reparations need to be paid, and so on, right? But Is that because of us? We should look back at ourselves and say the reason why all that is because of ourselves? Or is that because of what history has, been? So anyway, right? So let me show you this, right? So again, let's look at what took place up in Seattle, right? And how those who, created what they would call it, Chaz and Chop, right? I think it's what Capitol Hill, Occupy Zone is Chaz, and I think it's Capitol Hill, what's the Chop? Something OP, what the OP is. I'm not sure the OP is. But anyway, we're going to go up there and look at what happened the other night. And I'll come back after that. So check this out, and we'll be right back.
Horace Lorenzo Anderson. He was murdered in Seattle's CHOP zone, autonomous zone, or summer free love zone on June the 20th. Horace Lorenzo Anderson Sr. is with us, along with a family rep who is the executive director of Not This Time. Andre Taylor is with us. Sir, I speak for everyone I know watching this program tonight. We are so sorry for the loss of your son. And I don't know how I'm a father as a son that's 21 and a daughter that's 18, right around the age of your son. And this happened, 10 days ago, and the city still didn't do anything to protect its citizenry. Your thoughts, sir?
I think they should have just been, it's incredible. My son's 19, they should have did something about this a long time ago. And I don't, like I say, I understand Black Lives Matter and everything that's going on and everything, but that's not my movement right now. My movement is let them know that was my son.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? Horace Lorenzo Anderson was my son. I don't know. I'm not with all this, whatever's going on.
Politics or
none of that. I don't know nothing about that. I don't even know nothing about that. All I know is this was my son, and I love him, and I've been having him, man, it's been my son, and this is incredible. And I don't know, that should have been done a long time ago.
He has a concern about the fact that he was never, no one ever came and spoke to him.
Nobody ever. I never talked to, only way I found out, I seen my son the night before he passed away. He was on the couch. I seen him, and he was like he was about to go to sleep. I seen him. I laughed at him. We tickled a little bit. He stayed with me all day, because he stays with me anyway. That's my guy. And we laughed, and I said, I'm going to sleep. I went to sleep, and only way I found out was just two of his friends, two friends that just happened to be up there, and they came and told me they weren't even from Seattle. Now, mind you, I haven't heard the police department, they never came. My son's address, his ID, him personally, him as a person, he still had, somebody should have came, knocked on my door, and still to this day should have been like, coming to talk to me and let me know about my son. To this day, I don't know nothing. I'm just still sitting here. I haven't heard nothing from nobody. Ain't nobody contacted me.
You haven't heard from the mayor? You haven't heard from the mayor? You haven't heard from the governor? You didn't hear from anybody?
I haven't heard from the mayor. I haven't heard from the police department. I just now, recently, just because we went on TV, they reached out to me and let me know what they're doing now. But my son's been, he's been deceased now for two weeks, somewhere in there. I don't even remember. I'm just so, my days is like, every day is like every day. It's the same day. So it's like, I'm confused, and I'm but I understand that, whatever's going on. But even at the time, even when my son passed away, when I went to the hospital, there was no detectives there. There was nobody there, no media there. There was nothing. He was nobody. He was just like, we was just there, and we just sat there, and I said, man, why are we sitting here? There's nobody else here. It's like they didn't care. It didn't matter. I haven't heard from the mayor. I haven't heard from the police department. I haven't from no city and nobody. Only thing I heard from is what you guys is hearing from me now. That's it.
I saw this picture, then I looked for the video. This is a picture of you I'm holding up. It was in the Daily Wire. And what I see in this picture, if we can pan in close, if we can't, I understand. What I saw in this picture was a fellow father with a son around the same age as my son and about the same age as my daughter. And then I read the article and I read what you said, and you actually said, "You're not sleeping. You could see my eyes have been crying. I'm trying not to cry on TV." And then you went on and you explained how you could not understand how they allowed this lawlessness to go on. Now you're taking it to an entirely new level. Nobody had the decency to call you, and I assume you heard the mayor out there calling this the summer of love, and the media reporting it as a festive zone and one big block party.
Yeah, to this day, right now, they still haven't called me right now. I've been on TV. They still haven't called me. Nobody hasn't called me, and they're having reached out to be like, my condolence. Nothing. I don't understand. I never understood. All I know is now they're acting now. This is today. This is 3 weeks later. If I would have never even came on TV, that would still be going on right now.
Let me just say, Hannity, I don't want to make this no kind of political statement or political situation.
You could say anything you want, sir. Sir, you can say anything you want on my show.
Yes.
You can criticize me. I don't care. I want this to stop.
I don't need to criticize you. You were very gracious. You was very gracious in offering your condolences if nobody else have.
Yes.
You offered yours, and that's not a political statement.
Yes.
You compared his situation to your own with your daughters, and that's big. That means something, and I appreciate you for that. But what I don't want to do is get into who's this and who's the fault and who that, because we don't really know. CHOP, I believe, should have been dismantled at least a week before.
Yes.
When the first violence happened, we should have looked at it a little differently, and that wasn't done because I understand navigating in a time in our country that for the George Floyd situation, people were a little bit hesitant on how to act and not to be the one to feel like they're trying to put down young people's voices. And so I understand that as well. I just want to let you know personally, beyond all the politics, that I appreciate how you reached out to Horace and you said how you understood his condition. I think that's real big of you, and I appreciate that too.
Yes. I appreciate it too, because that's probably the only thing I've ever heard from anybody I haven't heard that from anybody else. And
that's heartbreaking.
We're on TV, and I've never been on TV, so I don't know how to be on TV. But my son was a child of special needs. He was born at 25 weeks. So they compare him. They trying to want to put him this, do that, but he was a child. He had developmental delays. You know what I'm saying? So he's easily to manipulate. You can tell him something. Come on, he'll come on. He's one of those type of child. So
that are very influenced by others.
Yeah, easily influenced. You know what I'm saying? Easily. He was sitting on my couch. I went to bed. I seen my son. When I left that night, I'd seen him. I came home. I seen him. I went to sleep. I seen him, and I just said, "I love you, man. I'm going to sleep." And that everything else just seems like
a blur.
Yeah, I don't even. Man, I'm numb. I'm still numb today. I got to bury my son tomorrow. And it's just been a lot going on. And my whole thing is, my whole life is, man, this is incredible. Yeah. And I'm like, I still this day. It's been almost 2 weeks. I haven't heard from nobody. Has nobody called? They still ain't nobody called me or try to find me. And his ID is my ID, so his number is my number. So they can. It's easy to come for the detective and say, "Hey, excuse me, knock on my door. Excuse me, let me tell you what happened about your son, or let me. I don't know nothing." I had to find my son. They wouldn't even let me see my son that night. It took me a whole week before I can see my son.
And then let me just say,
Mr. Anderson,
he's in trauma right now.
Mr. Anderson,
yes.
You weren't allowed to see your son for a week? Please,
they wouldn't let me. I went to the hospital, and they said that we couldn't see him. They just said we couldn't see him. There was when I go there, I'm going there. I'm looking for a detective. Somebody tell me something. But when I get there, there's nobody. I mean, the hospital is blank. it's silence. I'm going like, what's going on? So I go ask the lady, and she tells me, hold on. So I wait. I couldn't go in, so I'm waiting for a long time. Then she tells me to come in, and then the doctor tells me only thing he tells me is my son's deceased. I'm like, well, can I see him? Is it my son? Because you got to realize, at this time I'm going like, is it really my son? I want to know, is it my son? Mm-hmm. Because this could be somebody else's child. But I'm in my head, I'm going like, yeah, it's mine, because everybody's saying this, but in my heart, I'm going like, I need to see him I need to see him one time, just to make so I can see him. I couldn't see him that day. That was Saturday. It took all the way till Thursday. I just seen him just last week, just Thursday, and they had to, whatever they did to him and make him so they presentable, whatever it was. But I need to, I got to finally see him, and then in my heart, I knew it was my son now. This is my son, because, I wouldn't want nobody else's son. And man, this is incredible. These kids and the kids that passed, what happened the other day, all this on this child. Man, this is incredible. These are kids, man. I'm 50 years old. Man, these are kids, man. They should have been stopped this a long time ago. It's starting to get, excuse me, but it's getting to a point, where, it's getting.
Gotcha.
I'm so sorry.
I'm just really,
I'm so sorry, Mr. Anderson. I can only say this as a dad. You want to break Sean Hannity? I'm a pretty tough guy. That will break me. What you've been through.
Somebody that asked for this, and they need to come talk to me, and somebody need to come tell me something, because I still don't know nothing, and somebody need to come to my house and knock on my door and tell me something that, I don't know nothing. All I know is my son he got killed up there, and he's just a 19-year-old. No, that's Horace Lorenzo Anderson. That's my son, and I loved him, and that was my son,
Got your family. Don't worry about
everybody. I could tell you, sir, and Andre, I didn't want to cut you off earlier, but on this show we've done something. We have every weekend hundreds of kids shot, people shot in Chicago, killed every weekend. We get a death toll. Nobody knows their names. These are American kids, grandmothers, grandfathers, moms, and dads. We're the United States of America. We can fix this. We don't fix this. And you do it by right policing, training police, non-lethal weapons. You do it with a police presence, not demonizing. Everyone agreed what happened to George Floyd can't ever happen again. It was not a political issue. Right. How do we right. function as a
All right, so we back, right? So that was there, what you see in the interview with the Horace Lorenz Anderson Sr., along with Andre Taylor, a.k.a. known for some, I know him from American Pimp. But that's, well, he don't really want to be known, but he's did other things and had situations also with his own brother up in Seattle that he made some legislation or fought for and advocated for, so. But we see that this was on with Sean Hannity's show. And what they were talking about, for those, again, as I was getting into showing this clip, when they talk about the Capitol Hill autonomous zones, what they call CHAZ, right? And then CHAZ became CHOP, which is Capitol Hill Occupy Protest, right? And so, for those who may not know the entirety of that, I'll give you the background. It was the occupation protest, which became a self-declared autonomous zone up on Capitol Hill, the neighborhood, which is, again, Seattle, Washington. The zone originally covered about 6 city blocks and a park, right? Now, according to what they say, going with all the stuff that had been talked about, it was established around about June 8th, 2020. Now, this got all in place because, again, we talking about May 25th, 2020, which is who? George Floyd's, and these were the protesters, right? And so what happens is there was a situation with the police, with the Seattle Police Department, that was on the East Precinct building. And so what happened on the Black, I think around July 1st, they talk about later when they cleared the occupants by the police. So that'll talk about later when they did the executive order. So what happened is you had this Capitol Hill neighborhood, which they held for about a week with tense interaction between the protesters and the police. And when you had is the police came out there in full riot gear. And it began around June 1st, all right? So we're talking about, here we is today being, as I'm doing this show, July 2nd, we're talking about originating about a month ago, right? And so what happened was around about June 7th, they had got into this big escalation. Now, according to the stories and the reports, talk about a man who had drove a vehicle into the protesters and then shot one of them, right? And it was around the street, I think it was 11th and Pine Street, right? So what you end up seeing is they got more tear gas, flashbangs, pepper spray, and they were repeatedly being used by the police. And it came when it was really densely populated in this residential neighborhood. Okay, now this is early in June. And so what we see is that the mayor had issued a ban on the tear gas on June 5th. So somehow the mayor ended up stating that, okay, you know, they protesters, yeah, and the tactics that were being used and so forth created more animosity. So she decided that was going to be to take that away. And then the following day, we see that the flashbangs and pepper sprays were being used on demonstrators after, again, they got into this, you know, frontline confrontation, right? And so, when it happened, you see some of the groups of the city, county, and state representatives got on the front line with them. And so around about near midnight on about June 8th, somebody deployed some more, tear gas, right? Now, again, this is systemic going back when you look at it, right? This is all going back to whatever happened the night when somebody came in there with a black SUV who shot and somebody died, right? And so, again, as we're talking about, like, the accountability that they want to say that we must take out, was this, okay, we have to ask ourselves some questions here. Let me just say this. We got to ask ourselves some questions. Question becomes, let's look at this Chaz and look at this Chop, right? Now, they occupied it based on, they took again, it's kind of like it was a war, right? It's kind of like when the war was a booty of war, right? When it was Chaz, it was just the zone. This is what they were occupying, this zone, right? And then once that took place where somebody got killed, right? Then it escalated. It got, you know, just imagine being out there and doing what you're doing and, you know, you protest and then somebody get killed. So everybody amped up, everybody ready to get, you know, put some work in. And they fighting against the police, right? And so what ended up happening, the local governance in the zone was decentralized. So what they did is they decentralized the area and they created this, you know, neighborhood that had no police, right? That's how you got the Chaz, right? This was this Capitol Hill area zone where they were going to have no police in there, right? And this was on June 9th. And then you see what some of the demands by the protesters were for rent control, reversal of gentrification, the abolition or defunding of police funding and community health, releasing prisoners who were serving time for marijuana-related offenses and resisting arrest. And they wanted also to have expungements on their records, right? So these were some of the demands that they were doing. And so what we see is that, you know, Donald Trump ended up starting to make reference to about how these occupants as ugly anarchists, right? And he called on the governor of Washington and the mayor to take back the zone. But it was on June 11th where Mayor Jenny Durkin, what she did is she described the zones as 4 blocks in Seattle that is more like a block party atmosphere, right? So she's saying there was really no real emergency based on her observation of what information that she had got, right? And this is June 11th. Now, at this time, we're talking about they had at least 11 days, I guess, from June 9th, right, or June 8th, they end up decentralizing and it became now their territory. Now, the question becomes, with all that being said, is who benefits in this situation, right? We got to ask who benefits in this situation, right? Because you know how people are talking about defunding the police and getting rid of police and so forth. And then let's look at what happened in Minneapolis when they started to do that. Then didn't some mysterious happen where somebody started coming out and shooting up people? And then the same thing here. Here they is, they get a decentralized area. They end up becoming occupied. They got no police in the zone. And then somebody decided to go shoot to create the chaos. And then we see as Horace Lorenzo Anderson Jr., who actually gets killed after that, the original person who got killed. I never seen his name or anything, his or her name. But what you've seen in the interviews, you've seen the father, Mr. Anderson Sr., and he was giving you his, what he had endured and experienced, trying to get answers, trying to figure out what happened to his son after, being denied to see him, no information, no one's telling him anything. And then when he finally do see him, it's maybe a week or so later, right? But he don't really have no true answers as to what really took place. Now, based on the simple fact that what it looked like they were talking about here, it looks like that they occupied the zone. Again, it has 4 to 6 blocks. So you can just imagine all the stuff that was going on. You have people talking about it was raping and so forth. But those are some of the reports. Now, again, the question becomes who benefits from this, right? If you can maintain that and then you don't have no chaos and it's all some kind of harmony, then somebody is going out of business, right? Right? Somebody's going out of business. So what you have to do is ask yourself the question of the mysterious person who comes and creates the chaos. Would you be a betting person think that it was somebody who were part of that? Now, again, you're going to have people who have different mindsets. Again, I think it was a movie with Kurt Russell. It was called Escape from New York, right? So you kind of got one of those scenarios going on. Well, somebody's trying to vie to figure out how they can, be the leader and call. And then again, you're going to have heads bumping and it could create some other scenarios. And then you get some people who just see opportunity and they're going to take it. But what we see is that, that interview that we seen, it was hard to watch. You could feel the pain of the brother because, if anybody, God forbid, if anybody has lost a child and gone through that and feeling the pain, especially having no answers and having no real understanding of what took place, all you know is that, as he said, he's seen him before and went to bed, and then the next time he got 2 friends that tell that he's, ceasing. He goes through trying to find out, and then they still giving him the runaround and still delaying, and then it still takes weeks, so he still didn't know. So you could feel his hurt and his pain as you seen him, trying to stay strong. And in that interview, what you see is John Hannity seems to be trying to be a sympathetic person to what took place. He tries to make a bridge by saying that he has children around approximate same age, and there's a father that's on hand, and he could sympathize with him. But then he starts to get into that little political part, right? He said, "What do you mean? It took you a whole week, to get, it took a whole week and no answers. I mean, the mayor and the governor didn't call, right?" So he was getting political, right? So the question becomes, like I said before on other shows, when they're talking about Black Lives Matter, right? Black Lives Matter versus Black Lives Matter, the organization, to me, is 2 different things. Black Lives Matter is we the people, right? Now, again, we may not call ourselves that, but we as black people in this country is BADOS. Others may say FB, Foundational Black Americans, and FB and ADOS, but we all the same. We all cut from the same cloth, right? And so that, you know, these situations that be happening out here, we are, as family, we sympathize with each other about when certain situations are happening. But what we see here with Sean Hannity seems to play on the heartstrings of what took place, because as I said, as a matter of fact, the analogy that I'm making here is like this organization of Black Lives Matter. The front part is us and the trueness of what we have experienced and what we have gone through in this country. And some people want to say that we need to be, you know, we're self-inflicted these conditions on ourselves, right? For those who have that mindset. But many of us realize that we know what history and the puzzle that has been laid set up prior to whatever we were trying to do was a rigged game. And so what you see, some of the backlash is because of what has been centuries of this game going on. And so here's a situation that seems to be looking as if somebody's sympathetic to you, but really it's like trying to get at the administration in Seattle for allowing this to manifest. Because again, you know, this country is on about keeping a good face, right? It's like it projects itself to the world as the beacon of what democracy and all that is good. And as the BADOS and history-wise, we may have, say, a few things that might be in difference, right? But we have the good parts, which is what our part has, what we have contributed to this country, but we have not benefited from any of the labor, blood, sweat, and tears, right? So we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We just maybe have to change the damn water. So what we see is that you can see that in the questioning that even that Andre Taylor, Gorgeous Dre, he says, you know, we want to thank you for allowing us to come on here and so forth. But, you know, you talking about Chicago, right? You talking about, right, you know, you're making these comparisons. And we know what those comparisons, we know why you saying what you're saying. Because you're trying to say that how these cities are run amok and how no destabling police and so forth is, look at the carnage, as Donald Trump has said, the carnage that is in Chicago, and look what's manifesting there, and see this man here, and lost his son. I'm sympathetic with it. You understand, there was the administration that run, and as a matter of fact, when we look at who these mayors and stuff, and then he talked about how she said something about this is the summer of love, and you know, a block party and all that stuff, and they're going to use those words against them because in the eyes of the country going internationally, they're not looking, you know, like the control, you know, democracy that they teach and preach across the globe. And so what they want to do is they want to find the culprit as to allowing this to manifest so they can have somebody to scapegoat to put the blame on them. And that it was not really the country, it was just a lack there of leadership in these positions. And we're going to see as they manifest them as time go on, right? Because you hear people talking about, well, based on what happened with your son, there should be some accountability by the mayor and the governor for allowing this to manifest itself. But again, the whole aspect here was to give some highlight to Horace Lorenz Anderson, a young brother that was out there. Maybe he shouldn't have been out there. We don't know all the ins and outs, and we don't know what really took place. Now, again, who doing the shooting? Do it necessarily have to be some of those are the protesters that were out there, or because of Black Lives Matter and a lot of affiliates who have attached themselves in there and coming and doing a lot of other work, and then when the bad news comes, it's got a black face to it, and who benefits from tearing up so it don't have these zones with no police and they can, you know, let's say function in some kind of harmony and peace without you, then what does that do to those who are part of the police force? So sometimes you may have to think that I think it was said that some people cause the issue to come back and to save. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, that's what that is there. And, we, like I said, our condolences on Black Minds News go out to you, Mr. Horace Anderson Sr. I know you're in a lot of pain, but, hopefully you get some answers that's going to give you some solace of mind and heart. Because I guess nobody really wants to go through that kind of shit, right? If it can be, and so the way Sean Hannity got it, it's like, yeah, if they would have did their job, that wouldn't have happened. But again, there's a cause and effect. Would the protesters be out there if, again, matter of fact, before I even go into that, because what about what Sean Hannity said about he called himself? Did y'all catch it when he called himself? When he's saying that, we don't have to be out here, what do you say? Like with the police, he said, what was the term he used? I don't know, he said demeaning the police. Then he tried to change it up, and he said, well, what happened with George Floyd was wrong. Some more training. Is it really a training issue, or is it just a humanity issue, right? Do I have to be trained about certain way of how I deal with people, right? There's some things that is just innately, right and wrong. Some of the stuff that we are seeing out here seems that somebody has the lack thereof. So I guess the kickstand is, we're going to say training when you're doing things that you get caught on. Otherwise, they wouldn't give a shit as long as they didn't get caught. It's only when they get caught, then it's now talking about training. But it should just be a humanity thing. And again, everybody's going to say, well, this is a tough job. But that coming in, right? So knowing that coming in, check this out. So let's just see like what happened here in Seattle. Well, based on that taking place, look what this individual here did, what he did. Now I want you to check this out and I'll be right back. Check this out.
It is one of the most popular stories on news4jax.com. Clay County Sheriff Darrell Daniels has posted a video concerning the recent social unrest around the country and how his agency would respond to any violence. Daniels vows that he will deputize regular citizens who have gun permits to help his department respond should violent protests break out in Clay County. Daniels is up for re-election with a primary in August.
Sheriff Daniels' video sent out by CCSO is an official response to the recent national unrest.
Lawlessness, that's unacceptable in Clay County. And if you threaten to come to Clay County and think that for 1 second that we'll bend our backs for you, you're sadly mistaken.
Then Daniels goes on and says if his agency is ever overrun, he'll deputize regular citizens.
If we can't handle you, you know what I'll do? I'll exercise the power and authority as a sheriff, and I'll make special deputies of every lawful gun owner in this county.
News4JAX crime and safety expert Ken Jefferson, who once ran for sheriff in Jacksonville, says he believes the video is an example of a free political ad. And he questions whether Daniels will really deputize citizens.
I think that's a bluff, more so than anything. It sounds good on the surface. You can't have chaos among citizens. Citizens already have the right to defend themselves.
All right, so we back, right? Let me go ahead and show you this, right? Let me show you this right quick. Let me show y'all this. Let me show you this, right? So it's on your screen there, right? So you've been warned. Florida Sheriff says that man deputized gun owners against protesters, right? Now this is in lieu of what done took place over in Chaz, right? Or Chop, right? Based on what took place there. So here was an individual here, his name being Darrell Daniels, put out that video showing that him as the sheriff there in his town, that if that ever happens where he is going to deputize. He's going to deputize all the residents in his county, right? Now, this is Jacksonville, Florida, and it's in Clay County, right? And so, accordingly, he's no stranger to making viral videos appealing to tough on crime politics, right? And so what we see is that you've seen in this clip there, again, his whole thing is that he will deputies every lawful gun owner in the county. Right? So he feel like if we can't handle you, right? So he said he's not going to sit there like what happened over in the occupied zone over there in Capitol Hill. He said he would deputize. I'll exercise the power and authority as a sheriff. I'll make special deputies of every lawful gun owner in this county, and I'll deputize them for this one purpose, to stand in the gap between lawlessness and civility. That's what we're sworn to do. That's what we're going to do. You've been warned, right? So a lot of people saying like, well, hey, Daryl, what the hell are you talking about? Nobody's even focusing on us, but you kind of draw attention. So they're going to be like, oh yeah, we're coming over there, right? So, but we have to ask our question. Does Daryl Daniels have an agenda, right? Because there was something that kind of slid in there. Maybe you didn't hear or not, right? Maybe you didn't hear it. And so, that you've seen, again, it had 18 deputies and did that 3-minute video. But he derided civil rights protesters as godless disruptors. That's what he has said, right? He said that those civil rights protesters are godless corruptors, and that he says to tell them to stay out of Clay County, right? So he's trying to anticipate something that ain't even real. They don't have nowhere, there's nothing in his area close to something like that, but he felt this was the need to use this to grandstand, right? He's using this to grandstand. And so it's kind of funny that he being the first black sheriff. Now, anytime we start hearing the first black, now, a lot of us like to be put on the mantle. Hey, I'm the first black. Like, that's something. That just tell you where we at. That somebody finally allowed one of us to, get an opportunity, right? And then we have to kind of question sometimes how even people get in positions and what kind of connections or what kind of, backdoor deals you might be doing. And so, accordingly, he's supposed to be running for Congress, right? Right? So, goes like this. Okay, so he being the first black sheriff, but he was under investigation by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement related to an affair he had with a fellow officer. I had that video, but I don't believe that has anything to do anything. That was his own personal, between him, his wife, and the woman. But they kind of talked about that, where he had kind of affair with a worker. You know how that is. You mess with somebody at work, and when it goes sour, then, that whole shit is at the job. So, it's always a do or don't, right? But we see that Daniel is a first-term sheriff, and that he's up for re-election. Now, that's the key right there. This individual is up for re-election, and he has aspirations to become a congressman, right? But the people that he's trying to maintain and hold his position, he got about 6 opponents, right? He has the former Atlantic Beach police chief, Michelle Cook, was a female. She's black. He has a former Clay County Sheriff Office Emergency Management Director named Ben Carroll, and Mike Taylor, a former FDLE agent and state attorney investigator, right? And we see that he has been endorsed by Jeb Bush, right? Former Jeb Bush had endorsed him, right? So obviously, these other people that are running up on him may give him some problems. So I guess he felt like if I go ahead and use this, I'm making a stance. And that when you look at, I went and looked at the demographics of this place here, and it's an 81% white residents, right? 81%. And the makeups is German, English, and I think was another one, Saxon. It might be that, something like that. So these real white folks, right? These are real white folks over there, right? And the demographics is about like, the next big portion is black people, but they're like 9%, right? So this is a white place, right? And you got the old good, let's say you got those what they consider the England cuts over there, right? You got German, England, and Scottish, right? You got them over there, right? So what would better to fire them up if you talking about you finna deputize them, you know what I'm saying? Mount up, boys. We're about to have a barbecue, right? Yeah, okay. Right? So we see that a lot of his challenges accusing him of inviting chaos to Clay County, right? Again, like I said, you enticing everybody talking about, hey, if you come over here and if we can't handle you, we're going to put our whole residence on you, right? So, the residents might be, got an itch for a scratch. Like, come on with it. Come on, deputy. You know what I'm saying? We can do some gun smoke over here, right? And so, accordingly, that it is insulting that they say that, sheriffs are not like police. Police is actually like, they have to be, they under the sheriff, right? And they're saying being a sheriff, there's training necessary to become a sheriff and a deputy, right? So they train according to what they said. They said the train is intense situations to control adrenaline dump. So the way that they train as being sheriff, they put themselves in real hard situations and learn how to control their adrenaline so that they are always in more control, right? So they prepared to make decisions under pressure, and that helps them to be more effective. That's why you ever dealing with sheriff, you see how they're a lot more common than dealing with police. And he said, now to think that you would put anyone in that role and it'll be okay. Then they say, well, what you're going to end up doing is you're inviting chaos and anarchies in our street, and we as a citizen of Clay County, we deserve better than that. Don't you be enticing motherfuckers to come over here to put your ass to the test, right? You need to slow your roll with that. And so we see some of the people that he's run against and said deputizing private citizens could make the county liable to pay out lawsuits. So he's saying, wait a minute, hold on. You going to say I'm going to put every law-abiding who got a gun card, gun permit to be able to go out here, and they don't have the training we got. And that means, again, you could be harboring a lot of animosity because, again, the new, let's say, opposite word that you can affect. A lot of people just say something to them like Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. And you could get the come out of a mug. You know what I'm saying? So they say, you going to do that, knowing them may got that in them, and then you going to do that? Nah, man, who going to pay out all these damn lawsuits if that should happen, right? And says that even newly deputized citizens they won't act appropriately. Now, you going to deputize them, but that don't mean they're going to be, right? So, again, these are people he can run it against, so they're going to use this shit against him, right? And they talk about how, like, intend to be a pro-police message, right? He don't believe it was pro-police message. He think it was more about trying to set itself in the mindset of those who would be, voting, that when they see his name, they go, hey, man, you remember when Daryl, yeah, man, I'm going to vote for him. He's cool, man. I like the fact I got to go around and say, yeah, I was a deputy, that kind of shit, right? So a lot of people believe it was about propaganda message, because real police professionalism actually acknowledges that professional trained police officers cannot be replaced by swearing in a ceremony, right? So you got to make it equivalent, right? And so another one said that the video was signed, Daryl wasn't capable of leaving. Say, based on him doing what he did, say that was like there of leadership. Matter of fact, I seen another sheriff do that, and they was in there with ski mask on. Anybody seen that? It was out there. They had the AR 47s and AR 7s or whatever the hell it was, and they was just out there, and they was talking that, and they talking, you coming out town, we gonna, we're gonna clean you out. So he done seen that, so he gonna call himself doing it too. And so they said, well, based on what you're doing here, you calling for vigilantism. Mm-hmm. And based on you saying that, giving deputizing people who shouldn't be there, this is you showing incapabilities of being a good leader for the sheriff department. And you're really not keeping Clay County safe, right? So again, it's politics, right? Politics is being part of this, right? So they also talked about the fact that instead of dealing with real issues in a meaningful way, they equated him to like a reality show sheriff, right? Calling attention to himself, right? Gonna pull 18 officers off the street to use them to prop up, to do a taxpayer-funded campaign stunt, right? And they say, well, no wonder the goddamn morale on the goddamn police is down low. Look at the kind of shit you're out there doing, Daryl, right? And so we had another one who was running that was, I think, was Ben Carroll, who's been about 14 years on the sheriff's office, says that she runs a non-profit that trains churches and private schools on how to handle situations, right? And believe that it's foolish that you think that you take some private citizens and try to replace deputies. I train people, and then even they're not that good, but then you don't take some people just off the rip. So he losing a lot of brownie points. And then, again, you in there anyway. They may not like your ass no damn way. You know how about people be sometimes. You get in a position, you think that they liked me. They're like, shit. I don't even got no situation that you're dealing with. So, what else they talk about him? Supporting, owning, training, using firearms share must be capable of handling protesters on his own. Okay, so, but we gotta look at that, right? Like, our people now, my thing with this is this. This is my issue. This is my issue with this, right? My issue is he looks black, right? He look like he might be BADOS, right? And the protesters, at least what they saying is, more of a consistency of black folks, right? Then based on what done took place, and I understand that there may be a conflict of interest because of the fact that you black, but then you also police, and then, you're trying to uphold, and then, you know what I'm saying? So we kind of caught in the line, but why do a grand stunt like that? I mean, you that desperate to the fact that you would say that. So that means you're putting that shit in the minds of other places going down along who are looking at that shit too. And they go, hey, I can do that shit too, right? And so deputizing my folks to go out there. So basically, when you think about it, isn't that what they talk about in the Constitution and tyranny and all that? And then when the citizens can start arming themselves and go out there and protect the damn country, and that's what you kind of starting, right? So, I don't know, man. Sometimes, shit just reveals itself for what it is, and sometimes people just not thinking. But that's what he said there, so just in case you didn't hear, there it was, right? All right. Shit crazy, right? Shit crazy out here, right? So, I'm going to let this sister here ride out the show. I've seen this here, and I think she did a excellent job in front of an audience of white folks, saying some things that she was trying to give credence about her homeland, and I might do something after the fact of that. But let me let you hear this sister here. Check this out and be right back.
You name it, we've got it. We also have diverse wildlife and vast marine resources. And waterfalls and rivers that run into the most beautiful beaches. The land is golden, literally, a true paradise. Which, of course, is inhabited by the most beautiful souls. We have a very strong cultural heritage. In fact, Sierra Leone had the first sub-Saharan university. Prior to that, there was one in the Kingdom of Timbuktu, which was the first university in the world, succeeding the great Gnostic schools of Egypt and Osiris. On a deeper level, we are blessed with the real treasures the kings and queens of this world desire. This was the largest alluvial diamond ever found. It weighs almost 1,000 carats, 969 to be precise. This beauty was found by an old lady in her backyard about 2 years ago, 125 carats. Some people mine gold in their backyards. That's quite common. Besides gold and diamonds, we have about 20 precious minerals that have been discovered as of today. We recently started extracting huge petroleum reserves that have been discovered. We have platinum, ilmenite to make titanium, rutile to coat jets, iron ore, the largest iron ore deposits in Africa, the third largest in the world. Tantalite, also known as coltan, used in your mobile phones and computers. Bauxite for aluminum production. Zinc, chrome ore, copper, coal, phosphates, potassium, salt, lead, granite, asbestos, nickel, zircon. Furthermore, we have exquisite timber like mahogany, antique, and we have the most beautiful stamps in the world. Of course, the West needs Africa's resources most desperately to power airplanes, cell phones, computers, and engines. And the gold and diamonds, of course, a status symbol to determine their powers by their core and to give value to their currencies. One thing that keeps me puzzled, despite having studied finance and economics at the world's best universities, the following question remains unanswered. Why is it that 5,000 units of our currency is worth 1 unit of your currency, where we are the ones with the actual gold reserves? It's quite evident that the aid is in fact not coming from the West to Africa, but from Africa to the Western world. The Western world depends on Africa in every possible way, since alternative resources are scarce out here. So how does the West ensure that the free aid keeps coming? By systematically destabilizing the wealthiest African nations and their systems, and all that backed by huge PR campaigns, leaving the entire world under the impression that Africa is poor and dying and merely surviving on the mercy of the West. Well done, Oxfam, UNICEF, Red Cross, Life Aid, and all the other organizations that continuously run multi-million-dollar advertisement campaigns depicting charity porn to sustain that image of Africa globally. Ad campaigns paid for by innocent people under the impression to help with their donations. While one hand gives under the flashing lights of cameras, the other takes in the shadows. We all know the dollar is worthless, while the euro is merely charged with German intellect and technology, and maybe some Italian pasta. How can one expect donations from nations that have so little? It's super sweet of you to come with your colored paper in exchange for our gold and diamonds. But instead, you should come empty-handed, filled with integrity and honor. We want to share with you our wealth and invite you to share with us. The perception is that a healthy and striving Africa would not disperse its resources as freely and cheaply, which is logical. Of course, it would instead sell its resources at world market prices, which in turn would destabilize and weaken Western economies, established on the post-colonial free meal system. Last year, the IMF reports that 6 out of 10 of the world's fastest growing economies are in Africa, measured by their GDP growth. The French Treasury, for example, is receiving about $500 billion year in, year out in foreign exchange reserves from African countries based on colonial debt they forced them to pay. Former French President Jacques Chirac stated in an interview recently that we have to be honest and acknowledge that a big part of the money in our banks comes precisely from the exploitation of the African continent. In 2008, he stated that without Africa, France will slide down in the rank of a third world power.
And we are back, right? So sister sat there and kind of just told some truth, right? Right, TEDx, right, out there, white audience. Just kind of went through like, you know, hey, the continent, Africa, richest, most mineral rich, gold, diamond, the progenitor of education, knowledge, has somebody who's parasitic on it, who's been leeching on it, who's been rigging the game to make what you don't have and, you know, trying to manipulate you that you need me when in exchange really is you need me. So she laid out all the things and you could feel and see how white folks were uncomfortable hearing that, right? That when you go and you start to hear this history of what you being the beneficiaries of what your ancestors have laid for you, you can't be mad at we who've been oppressed. That now that the truth is being revealed to you, the question becomes, what are you going to do to remedy it? It's a big sacrifice that needs to be made. And in one aspect, spiritually, there's things that are manifesting and happening that even with good science and great science, you still can't stop it. They're talking about the browning of America, right? And here's this sister saying that, well, the continent and all that it provides, it wants to now, after being depleted and raped and divided and resold back what it had already had, is now want to control it and now make you become the customer. And other people see that and they realize if that happens, right, can they live in a world where they're not controlling everything? That's not really our problem, is it? Time is on our side. You know, I know there's things that people are working behind closed doors, but time is on our side. So this young lady is sitting there telling you the history and look at the conditions of the country and see the machinations of the game that was played to keep them in this condition. It's got to be unnerving for those who feel like somebody is shooting an arrow at them. But they say the truth is what it is. It's like a burning reef. You're going to have to accept it. Truth is what it's going to always be. But the fact is, the reason why I wanted that sister there is because I'm going to close out the show with this here. I did this once before, right? About this BIPOC. Now, that was that sister who was talking about being from the continent and, reading the rights and the histories of what take place and all the beauties and all the natural resources and enrichments of the country compared to people who are usurping and taking. Now, what I do this here is to make how that sister there did what she just did, Well, we also had that same claim here in the United States. But let me show you something. And again, I do this for what I do as the news. So check this out. Be right back.
Up for you. This is Donald Trump on Fox. I don't like to play a ton of Trump sounds. I think people know what he says and he tweets a lot. But this is him on Fox News Sunday, and I just want to get your specific response to this. What he is saying to Black Americans, descendants of slaves like yourself, like myself, who want monuments removed. This. I'm just going to play for you. This is Donald Trump on Fox. I don't like to play a ton of Trump sounds. I think people know what he says and he tweets a lot. But this is him on Fox News Sunday, and I just want to get your specific response to this. What he is saying to Black Americans, descendants of slaves like yourself, like myself, who want monuments removed. I'm going to play for you. This is Donald Trump on Fox. I don't like to play a ton of Trump sounds. I think people know what he says and he tweets a lot. But this is him on Fox News Sunday, and I just want to get your specific response to this. What he is saying to Black Americans, descendants of slaves like yourself, like myself, who want monuments removed.
Protests are going on in Billings, and authorities were notified of the rally ahead of time. Billings police says they expected the protest to be peaceful, but also say they are prepared for any outcome. For organizers, they say it'll be an emotional day, and Q2's Jenny Fick brings us more.
Inspirational music, to get people pumped up, but in a positive way.
The organizers of Justice for George Floyd planned a peaceful protest, and they aim to keep it that way.
We will be opening with an Indigenous people's powwow prayer, a group that's coming in to do that, and I'm very excited for it because we are, the memorial for George Floyd, but we also want to include all of BIPOC.
The organizers hope to honor Black, Indigenous, and people of color in our community while bringing togetherness.
We're going to be singing some songs.
Just can't be numb to the certain situation anymore. The sadness and the rage and the love and the passion that I have it came over me.
Conversations that are positive and go in a positive directions are when people are both willing to hear each other out.
That have genuine questions, and if it's coming from a genuine place, I can answer those questions in a genuine way.
They have also been contacted by people from the Not in Our Town program.
Yes, we don't want people to just come hold the sign and think, hey, I just changed the world, because that's not what's happening. We need to keep going.
Not in Our Town originated right here in Billings after residents stood up for their neighbors against hate crimes occurring in the 90s. The program inspired communities around the world to take a stand against hate.
I'm proud that she brought me to this because this is something we've talked a lot about over the years. And
I told my husband, there's going to be people speaking at the rally. I would love to see you speak. And he's like, I don't like to speak. That's not my game. But then this morning he came in and he's like, listen to this recording of something I wrote. And I listened to it and I just started crying because I'm like, I'm so proud of you.
I'm not just going to stop here just for this one certain moment. It's going to keep going for the rest of my life. So my kids can ensure and everybody else's children have a better future.
We'll close out with a prayer, and we will also be laying down on the ground with our hands behind our back for the 8 minutes and 46 seconds that George Floyd was held down.
And so I think educating yourself and being open to having conversations with people of color and other minority groups, that's a great start.
Yep, from playing high school basketball to college basketball to now. He's going to be a teacher at Skyview this year. So, changing kids' lives. So, changed ours.
It's awesome that we get to involve different cultures in what we're doing, and that's our goal, is to bring everybody together. So we do have a great support system in our community with people who do want to help and genuinely care. So you got to start somewhere, and that's where we're starting.
In Billings, Jenny Fick, MTN News.
Organizers also said they will be handing out masks to the crowd and will have coverage from today's protest.
All right, so we back, right? So, in that first clip there, you seen Joy Lamanna right? Joanne Lamanna, right? Reed, right? That's her name, Joy Loanna Lamanna Reed, right? Now, Joanne, right, born out of Brooklyn, New York, right? And her father is from the Democratic Republic of Congo, right? And her mother is a college professor and a nutritionist from British Guiana, right? So based on what we hear as her parentage, right, that what would you assume that if Joy Reid, who is born in Brooklyn, right, does that make her, as you heard her in that video, when she talked to the other individual that we didn't quite know who she was, but she classified her as a BADOS, and she said herself as BADOS. Can Joy Reid say she is BADOS because she's born in Brooklyn, New York? Is being BADOS predicated on the fact that one is just born in the United States? Okay? This is what I'm posing here. Because I be seeing sometimes with certain shows and people come on and then there's people who are misspeaking about the position and not understanding that it's not just the birth of you being in the United States that classify you as BADOS. And so I take her based on the simple fact that she has said some things earlier when she was calling us Russian bots, when she seemed like she wasn't really down for, like, again, the Black Corner, in YouTube, and was talking about, reparations and so forth, and seemed like she was all against it. And then when it seemed to catch some momentum, they started to get people to take it out of the hands of those who were bringing this to the forefront in the nation. Not to say that the other organizations prior to did not make any headway, but it ran its course, right? But the new galvanization that was done by, the ADOS, we're talking about Yvette Carnell and Tone Talks, right, Antonio, and, and the rest of us in the corner as we were, making this part of our statement. Then it kind of got splintered, FBA and B1, a whole lot of stuff happened. But the fact is, cut from the cloth on the bloodline, that's who we are. Now, she stated, as you heard in the video, she stated like herself, she's Black American, right? When you know you're not. See, that's the thing. People get upset because they say we're being divisive when we're trying to say that it's not to exclude you, but this is an inclusive, lineage. And we see that in that other part of that video, you seen that was the BIPOC, right? That was what that was, BIPOC. And I'm going to tell you more about this BIPOC business too, right? But I use Joy Reid is because Joy Reid, being knowing that her father's from Congo and her mother from British Guinea, then how do you say that yourself that you are a Black American? Now I understand that you don't have no direct to the continent, but in actuality you do, because your parentage both, well, your mother is British but still being Ghanaian, and your father is Congo being direct and then coming and then according went back. But your culture that you're being taught in your home is going to be a direct continent African culture, right? Now your birth here may qualify you to be considered a citizen in this land. But when you're talking about specifics, when we're talking about BADOS and we're talking about the specifics in the bloodline, why do people try to act as if they don't understand that? And we know they do. So otherwise, shows like mine wouldn't have to say what I'm saying. And others, they're doing it too as well. But the BIPOC part, right, is like, when you talk about Black Americans, right? And Black Americans in this country, we've been called a lot of things: African American, Negro, colored. Some people say even other than the word nigger, right? I don't know if we ever was really called that. I think that was kind of being called, but that was not like you called nigger as a name as to like, that we defined by that, right? But those would be some of the derogatory slurs that would be used, right? And so, again, I had did this story once before about this BIPOC, and the acronyms stand for Black Indigenous People of Color. And I'm going to say that again, BIPOC. The acronym stands for Black Indigenous People of Color, right? And so they said this had been making some momentum, and that people were trying to use this terminology because when you talk about people of color, that actually dates back centuries. And the recording was first cited in the Oxford English Dictionary with the British spelling of COLOUR back in 1796, right? And it often had abbreviated the POC, right? Now, the other two letters that they use, the B and I, which is Black and Indigenous, right? They included this in the acronym to account for the erasure of Black people with darker skin than Native American people. Now, listen to that. Think about that. Those who would be considered POC. Now, POC would be people of color who do not originate lineagely in this country. Let me say that again. POCs would be people of color who would not have lineage directly coming from the United States, but may be either first or second generation who are born here, right? And so we see that the POC people are taking up a mantle and trying to get themselves inclusive in the fight, right? Now, let's look at how they're working this, right? And so when they decide they want to do this, now again, they think if they would try to originate and make themselves POC and be out here, it's not going to catch any ground. So you had to throw in Black, Indian, and Native Americans, right? To give it any credence, right? So let's not play this game, because see, there's people who know out here that people who come from other lands that come here, they try to run game on us as if like we don't be catching on how they be doing what they're doing. Again, this is not being divisive. This is about us, setting the parameters so that there's no misunderstanding about who's who. We family, but you in my house, and you got to recognize you in my house, right? There's certain rules and regulations that abide that applies to you, and there's certain things privileges that you just don't have. So we can't misconstrue them and get the lines blurred to the fact that, you're equivalent. So that's why I do this, not because I'm trying to be divisive. So the Black Indigenous, they say again, they were added because it made sure that they were inclusive. Now, I don't know how you including us in, your group, if that's what you want to say, POC as a group, when POCs, either you are byproduct of one of these two, right? Either you're a byproduct of one of the two, but to be a byproduct, which means you have to be inclusive. You can't be a byproduct and then say we're going to create our own group, and then it don't work like that, right? It don't work like that. And so now they said that they think the major purpose of that was for including voices that it had originally been heard that wanted to be included in the narrative for darker skin and Blacks, Indigenous groups. All shades are being represented. Now, again, I think, it's kind of like there's certain people who have certain reputations no matter where they go. When people say that if you go from outside the United States and go to a place and you tell me from the United States, do they automatically know that you Black American? Is there something distinctive about you? Right? So we don't really have to really do that. Now, the people who, again, based on your makeup, right, you could be part this and part something like that, but you were considered in a POC, that's fine. Nobody's trying to take that from you. But when you talk about indigenous, right, indigenous people and Black American people, Black American is it's indigenous as well, right? Yes, it has its roots and ties back to Africa, but it's also indigenous here in the United States because it was here before the founding of the United States. It created the United States, right? So before there was even the so-called immigrations or migrations, we're talking about people or POCs black folks was already here. We were already here, right? And so according to this PLC, the way they define things, they say they even include Latinos and Asians, right? Asians is part of the PLC and Latinos. We can see that, but I'm not sure about the Asian part. But I guess they say they're yellow, right? So anyway, so they say that what they see when indigenous people are included or not included, they see not them in sports. Like they talk about the Indian is only considered to be a mascot of controversy, maybe be on the Land O'Lakes margarine, butter, and stuff like that. But they say that when black people are open to giving space to the plight of Native American, but there's a frustration when it comes to the BIPOC. Well, they say that we don't have a problem with the plight of Native American because there was a time, according to the way they tell the history, until we find out anything different, that black and Native American were side by side at one time. And there's even where the Native Americans even had our people as subjugated as slaves, right? And then there's some of us who got the bloodline of some of the Native Americans in us. So we would never have really a problem with them, right? They have their plight and their issues and their history, and we're kind of separated from that. Now, you said we're frustrated when it comes to the POC is because if you're not part of the bloodline from black Americans, then you have to be a migrational aspect coming into the game. Now, if you're part of one, then ain't no need for you to try to be split talking about POC. Because if you're part of the bloodline, unless, I don't know, it could be your mama, right? You could be half and half, and I can understand that. But there's a part where you're going to be inclusive because you know where I am Black American too. So you wouldn't have a problem with that. It's those who know they're neither Black American nor Native American, and they know that, let's say like Joy Reid, who is Ghanaian and let's say Ghanaian and Congolese, right? So I don't understand how you try to define yourself as Black Americans if you don't know that Black American, African American is pertaining to those who migrated from the South, who were subjugated in the South, and who did the migration, right? From the South coming to the North. If you're not part of that, you can't be classified that, right? And so they believe that when you blend us all together like this, right, there's an erasure. When you try to take POC and Black and Indigenous and try to lump it all to make it one big group, there's an erasure happening here. And that's true. Black Americans in this country have a unique and distinct history that is separate from any and everybody else here. That is only solely about us. Now, each person here got their own history. Now, again, you could be the product of a byproduct of two people. So you have a dual history, right? Now, you can be part in this, or you could be exclusively out of it. But you can't say that my plight is equivalent to your plight, even though you might be here. Let's say, for instance, you can have two people. Let's say that you have two people in their 50s. One of them was born here. Their parents, let's say like Joy Reid. Joy Reid is like 50. She would be considered first generation. And let's just say that another individual is 50 like her, but is coming from BADOS, long lineage, been here 10, 12, 13 generations or more, right? You mean to tell me that they both born, let's say, again, I think Joy Reid is born in 68. So they both born in 68, and they the same age, but they both are the same as to the bloodline in history? Is that what we're trying to say? Because she's born in Brooklyn and this one here is born, let's say this one is born in, let's say, Alabama, right? So these two are equivalent? No, they're not. They're not. And so why do people who understand that are trying to take that? Because one, a lot of people know that they don't have a history, and some of them are using this because they're not really trying to be like their parents. Let's just be real about it. There's a lot of them who try to be what they say Americanized and not trying to take on the culture of their family to be unique in their family. And then so now what you end up doing is being an outsider, even when you come amongst your own, well, the people who are of your lineage, you're considered an outsider. So now that leaves you here being in the United States, but you're not inclusive really with the Black Americans because of the blood. You can be considered a Black in America, but when it comes specific and distinctly, you cannot be Black American, right? And that's where a lot of people are getting angry because they say we're being divisive, but that's just the facts. That's just the truth. That's not hating anybody, right? So it leaves that people who try to like cling on to that, right? Let's just say, for instance, you got the LGBT groups, you got the feminist group, you got all these groups, who try to latch on to Black American history to give validity to their organization. Because otherwise, if we didn't have that, then how do you proceed before my grievances, right? How do you get before my grievances? You can't. So you either latch on or trying to find a way to latch on to give you validity if we can give some kind of agreement to it. And that's what a lot of people have come here trying to do. A lot of them don't realize that, again, there's too much skin in the game, too much blood been laid in the game for us to just be relinquishing it to anybody just because everything in my skin is supposed to be my kin. No, this has to be something, and it's not against the grand union of unification as Black people globally, but we're just saying distinctly because of why do you think they have tribes on the continent? And those tribes have tongues and they have cultures that are distinctive to those who are part of that group. But when it comes to the United States and when it comes to Black Americans, everybody's saying that they want to take the melting pot experiment and apply it to it to see that there's a benefit in it. But we have allowed so many people to benefit where we haven't gotten anything. And yet, even at this day and time, people are still trying to find ways to get in because, let's be real about it, some of y'all who come from other places swear down that you're more intelligent and smarter than us. You think you know the game better than us, especially when you are like a generation or two, and you think because you hang around, you get the hip hop and so forth, and somehow that you think you know the game. Sometimes you just ain't been around real Black Americans to set you straight. Again, we can be inclusive, we can be hurt, we can be family, we can be all that. But there's a distinctiveness here, and that's what's happening in this country about what's going on. So if everybody here is trying to talk about I'm PSC and that we should be having rights and all that, wait a minute. Where you from? Where your parents from? That's where your gripe. It seems like everybody wants to latch on, but nobody wants to put in none of skin and blood in the game. If y'all put blood and skin in the game, you could have in the lands that where y'all come from, and y'all could be getting that too. But you're just running. A lot of y'all are just either, parents are runners, grandparents are runners. Somebody was running, but nobody was willing to sit there and fight. Black Americans have been in the same place from the time of the subjugation and everything else that has endured through them from the time they've been here. What makes you equivalent? There is no equivalency, right? And so here they saying that, the moment when Black Americans are asking that their names of those who were killed at the hand of police are allowed, when Black people are asking for equal treatment on a global scale. Now, I don't understand when you talk about Black people seeking equal treatment on a global scale, but what does that have to do with us here in the United States, right? It's funny that people got fights about their plight, but they're not in the land that they got to fight with. Let me say that again. People got fights about the plights, but not in the country for where the fight is at. You from abroad yelling and talking about, yeah, you supposed to treat us right. We supposed to get in there and get your head beaten, holes and water. See, when we talk about racism in this country, the problem with a lot of people, POC people, is the people look just like you. So how do you say racism when this is people who are exactly like yourself? The game here is we were Black and they were white. You understand? There was a difference between us that was physically could be seen. When y'all go to the lands that y'all come through, the variations that you use, like in India, the dark and the lighter ones, but there ain't no difference between y'all, the same damn people. And on the continent, it's the same damn people. In South America, it's the same damn people. But here in the United States, there was a difference between the white one and the black one. What don't people understand in that? Right? So, you know, again, don't take this in a way that many of y'all probably gonna leave, but again, it's got to be said, man. It's just got to be said, because, you know, if they do a poll like they did the poll before, and they need to do that poll, because we need to see where the heart and spirit of many of y'all who know that you're not Black American or African American, and when they do that poll and ask you that simple question, what you gonna really say if you find out that you're not entitled to nothing? Will you be a hater and be like, if I'm not getting nothing, you're not getting nothing? Is that who you really are? You mean to tell me that, again, the lighthouse, the preserver, was given for a place that you could be still at, that you hate so much, that you came a place for refuge and up on us, and even though we didn't eat, we allow you to eat better, sleep better, you know what I'm saying, be better, and yet, if you think like that, then that tells really who you are inside internally, right? So that's what's going on here, man. People are saying they us and know damn well they not us. They want to be us, but they don't want to take on, they don't want to go through the work that it took for us to be where we at this point. You don't want to go through the long centuries of just unfannable that y'all couldn't even imagine. And a lot of that resides in a lot of us. Right? So they believe that the fact that people think that we're one homogeneous group, right? That we won't acknowledge their diversity. They say that contributes to their dehumanization. Now, how does it contribute to your dehumanization when the fact of the matter is that people acknowledge you as for who you are, but when you're here trying to garner something as a group, as if like you have priority, then you only misleading yourself. Then you lying to yourself. It's not that people trying to, to the side. It's the fact that you're not really entitled. You ain't putting nothing in the game. And if you are putting something in the game, it's only right now or a generation or two. But you ain't put in centuries and hundreds, hundreds of years in this game. There's no match for us in this land. Even that the one who was on the other side of it that was oppressing us know that. So when are y'all gonna get it in y'all head to understand that too? Well, I ain't gonna say no more, but I could have said some more. But that's it, enough. Because again, it's not here to beat anybody up. But there's a lot of people who, I seen some things that people were saying like, well, we were not slaves. They try to demean us and say, oh, you guys were slaves. We were never slaves, but your ass is here with me. It was so great. I should have never known you. I am in the land of my forefathers and ancestors have been. And I can go far enough back to go over to if you want to talk about on the continent. But when it come here, I got enough lineage and line of history that, that you can't match. So you're supposed to respect me. You're supposed to give me some love. Not sitting here trying to figure out how you can undermine me and take. Well, again, this is Mr. Blow Your Mind. This has been another Black Minds News. We got to set it straight because time coming where all this got to be rectified and clarified so we can get that divide, right? And cut that check. So again, I want to thank each and every one of you for coming over here, clicking on the video. You got to do like, share, comment, give your 2 cents. Some of you probably going to unsubscribe, but it's all good over here, you know what I'm saying? Again, you know how it is over here. We're going to tell like a TI is, right? All right, well, let's get it going. Get up out of here. Here we go. Oh, there we go. I don't get it. Get it? All right, what's going on, right? It's a little slow there. again, when you see your brother, greet your brother. What's good, brother? What's good, sister? We can't do that much. Do a universal nod. You know how we do. You know, we live in a time where, you know, a lot of people just kind of like, you know, got things in their minds and how they heart and feel about us. But we're going to keep it going. You know, we ain't hating on nobody. We allow a lot of people, man. We're the most generous people on the planet. You know what I'm saying? Even when we don't got a place to lay down, we give you a place to lay down. When we ain't eating, we let you eat. We ain't going to school, we let you go to school, right? We live in the most dilapidated workplaces where our children have to try to survive so that you can have a better one. And we can't get the proper due respect. That tells a lot about y'all. Again, we're living in some, you know, sometimes that we're at a crossroad. And it's a matter of time that all this will come to a culmination to figure out what is going to be the right move for everybody. Again, this is Black Minds News. Until the next show, y'all. Till the next. Yo, you late, boy. You late. You late. Yeah, we ain't talking. You still there, right? So anyway, this is Black Minds News. Your host, Mr. Blow Your Mind. Until the next show, y'all. Till the next show.